Upon completing his training in the serene woods, Mash pulls out a creamy puff from his bag and relishes its taste, mentioning how it is a perfect way to end a rigorous workout session. Meanwhile, Rigro, Mash's caring adoptive father, savors a hot beverage while sitting alone in the tranquility of his abode in the woods. Suddenly, the entrance door rattles, and Mash barges in, tearing the door off its hinges. Rigro screams at Mash, pointing out that he only needed to open the door, not break it. Mash apologizes for his impulsive action, admitting that he couldn't recall if he had to push or pull the door, leading him to use excessive force. Rigro forgives him, but cautions him about his behavior. Mash begins to push the door repetitively into the frame, causing Rigro to shriek again. Rigro tries to guide Mash, but Mash misunderstands and continues to force the door, ultimately snapping it into 3 pieces. Realizing his mistake, Mash apologizes for his actions. Rigro dismisses the broken door incident and inquires about Mash's training progress. Mash reports that his routine went smoothly and queries Rigro about the daily workouts. Rigro responds enigmatically that it is a story for another day. Knowing that Mash lacks the ability to use magic, he believes that physical training is the most he can do for him. Rigro then warns Mash not to leave the house and venture into the city, but Mash assures him that he won't. Rigro commends Mash for being a good son before leaving. As soon as Rigro departs, Mash discovers an advertisement for Goblin Cream Puffs on a piece of paper and decides to explore the city in search of this exclusive one-day-only special menu, as he cannot resist the allure of an empty stomach. Upon arriving in the city, Mash is taken aback by the sight of people using magic to carry out even the most mundane of tasks, such as cooking, cleaning, and serving drinks. He can't help but wonder why people don't just do these things by hand. Despite his confusion, Mash makes his way to Goblin Cream Puffs and purchases 7 of the special pastries, paying with 3 coins that turn out to be bent. The shopkeeper is surprised, but Mash offers to fix them, which he does with ease, causing the shopkeeper to react with shock. As the shopkeeper hands him the cream puffs, a sudden gust of wind blows Mash's hood down, revealing that he lacks the magic mark that is present on the faces of all those who possess magic abilities. This unexpected revelation shocks both the shopkeeper and the onlookers, who begin to whisper among themselves. In a police station, Brad Coleman, a police officer, can be seen scanning through a newspaper. The article states that Rain Ames, a second-year student at Easton Magic Academy, has been crowned this year's Divine Visionary for her exceptional skills. It also mentions that the Divine Visionary will be honored with nobility status and 1 billion London, the world's currency. Brad remarks that he wishes he had that level of talent instead of living a monotonous life. Suddenly, a voice from the cell pleads Brad to pardon him, confessing that he stole something small but unimportant. Brad snubs him, saying that his petty crimes only add to his workload and that he will keep him locked up until he learns to stay out of trouble. Just then, the telephone rings, and Brad picks it up to learn that an individual without a magic mark has surfaced in this city. While strolling through the city and munching on his cream puffs, Mash accidentally collides with Terry, a police officer, and smears cream on his clothes. Mash apologizes, but Terry starts yelling at him, saying that he protects the city without receiving any appreciation. Mash offers Terry a cream puff, but Terry believes Mash is insulting him by giving him a half-eaten one. Terry slaps the cream puff out of Mash's hand, calling him a bratty punk, and demands that he do something about the mess he made on his uniform. Mash then unexpectedly rips Terry's clothes off, offering to wash them for him. Terry starts screaming as his clothes are destroyed instead of being cleaned. At that moment, Brad arrives and asks what the commotion is about. Terry points at Mash, and Brad realizes that Mash lacks a magic mark. However, before Brad can take any action, Rigro grabs Mash and runs away. Brad mutters that it will be a hassle, but he cannot let this opportunity slip away. Upon arriving home, Rigro immediately reprimands Mash for venturing into the city. Mash immediately apologizes and assures Rigro that he won't repeat the mistake. Regro notices Mashle's remorse and advises him to be more cautious in the future. As punishment, Regro requires Mashle to repeat his training regimen. Mashle gives Regro the remaining cream puffs as a peace offering before he departs. Regro contemplates how subservient Mashle is, but he worries about the consequences of the magical police discovering Mashle's presence. Regro must act quickly to avoid any repercussions. However, Brad, Terry, and another police officer abruptly burst into the house before Regro can implement his plan. As Mashle completes his training, he sets out to return home while humming a melody about cream puffs. However, when he arrives at the door, he is uncertain if he should push or pull it. As he stands there, he overhears Brad saying that they have come for the child that he is sheltering. Brad goes on to explain that those who lack magical abilities are excluded from the gene pool, and this has been the case throughout history. He claims that this is a necessary sacrifice for the benefit of society, as they should not have been born in the first place. Brad then directs his attention to Regro and informs him that hiding those who lack magical abilities is a serious offense. He demands that Regro hand Mashle over to them, but Regro refuses, which infuriates Brad. As a result, Brad launches an attack on Regro. In a flashback to Regro's childhood, it is revealed that his father did not love him because he was not skilled in using magic. He was constantly belittled and made to feel worthless. Regro almost took his own life due to this, but he found Mashle abandoned on a bridge as a baby. After realizing that Mashle did not have a mark, he decided to raise him as his own son. In the present, Regro reflects that even though they are not related by blood, he will always see Mashle as his own. He warns Mashle to run away, but Brad orders the other policemen to search for him. Brad tells Regro to stay quiet and strikes him on the head, but Regro still calls out to Mashle. Mashle bursts into the room, crashing through the door and knocking down one of the policemen. Terry tries to remind Mashle of their past encounter, but Mashle quickly retaliates by tearing off Terry's uniform and repeatedly slapping him in the face. Regro questions Mashle about why he didn't run away, and Mashle responds with a simple yet powerful statement. "Because we are a family." Brad finds Mashle's strength without magic laughable, especially given Brad's prior experience in the Bureau of Magic's security force. Brad prepares to use the Nalcompass spell, a powerful spell he had previously used to fend off a dragon. However, Mashle easily deflects the spell with a single slap, leaving Brad bewildered as to how Mashle could possess such strength. Brad acknowledges Mashle's fighting skills and claims that he won't be able to withstand his next spell. Despite Terry's warning about the potential destruction of the forest, Brad disregards it and unleashes a powerful spell called Nalcompass Diagoras. Mashle, once again, effortlessly counters the spell by swatting it away. This only serves to further infuriate Brad, who launches a series of attacks at Mashle. However, Mashle remains unscathed and instead decides to have some fun with the attacks, treating them like balls and juggling them with ease. Mashle proceeds to pick up Regro's wand, mentioning that he needs to borrow it. This action leaves Brad perplexed, but he quickly raises a defensive spell. Mashle then hurls the wand, breaking through Brad's shield, slicing his cheek, and lodging it into the wall. Brad collapses on the floor, remarking that he has never witnessed someone using a magic wand in that manner. Mashle warns them not to lay a finger on his family, threatening to take their lives. Regro is taken aback by Mashle's incredible strength, pondering how he could have acquired such abilities when his training was solely for self-defense. Brad chuckles and commends Mashle for his abilities, before offering him a proposition. He proposes that Mashle comply with his instructions, and in return, he will release Mashle and Regro. Mashle inquires about the offer, prompting Brad to explain that they reside in a strongly religious nation where one student is selected each year to be the divine visionary, a chosen individual of God. Brad suggests that Mashle simply needs to enroll in a magic school and earn the title of divine visionary, which would compel society to accept him. Brad asserts that he only seeks the wealth and recognition that accompany the position, and thus will aid Mashle in his endeavors. Regro tells Mashle not to listen, as the plan is absurd and they shouldn't trust someone who just tried to kill them. Brad says that he can see why they would be skeptical, but if they refuse, the magic police will never stop hunting them down. He says that Mash may be able to take it, but Regro won't. He then asks Mash if he wants to spend the rest of his life being hunted like a dog, or sees this chance to turn society on its head. Mash agrees to the deal, causing Regro to lose his mind. Mash then says that he will be fine as he is chock full of motivation, as he wants the two of them to live in peace, and if the world won't allow that, then he has got no choice but to crush it with his fist.
Easton Magic Academy is a historic and prestigious school that has produced numerous pillars of the magic realm. Its entrance examination is notoriously difficult that not even 3% of the applicants will be admitted, but only those with superior magical powers will be able to open the gates of Easton. This year's exam will be held under the watch of Claude, who is a great magic user and a teacher of the Easton Magic Academy. Claude looks at the candidates and notices some young people from prestigious families or organizations, but then notices Mash, who is doing some physical training in the candidates' gathering area, and he is surprised as Easton was a magic school, not a gym training school. When Mash pretends to be sitting on an invisible chair while reading a fitness book, Claude gets annoyed and considers Mash to be slacking and guesses he won't pass the first round. Regro and Brad were also behind him, dressed as a student and covered with green branches. When Regro asked about Mash's chances in joining the Magic Academy, he tells him to not forget about his powers, as he has already drawn a magic mark on Mash's cheek which no one can remove it. Claude then appears on the stage and introduces himself, welcoming them to the Easton Magic Academy. As he surprised all the youth who are awe on his achievements, one of them reveals that he is this year's 7th best up-and-coming mage, and despite his youth, he had already mastered countless advanced spells. But unlike the rest, Mash mocks him for the way he appeared, much to Claude's annoyance. Claude then tells the students to take a seat and uses his magic to make some desks appear in the arena and hands exam sheets with magic pencils, only for Mash to comment that he should have taken them to a room where everything was already set up. The exam starts and the students notice the questions on the exam paper are squirming all over the place, making them unable to even read them. Khulud reveals that only those who can dispel the magic and properly line up the questions would be able to pass this exam. Mash asks the letter to stop squirming, but as they continue, he crushes his pen and asks again they stop moving, after which the questions properly align themselves. Mash then hands the paper to Claude, and to his surprise the questions were perfectly aligned. Mash then continued to pass the exam, including Boulder Float, Running on the Water, and many others. Much to Claude's anger, he wonders why a trash like Mash is able to pass these tests, but decides to throw him an even bigger and harder exam. He then uses his magic and create a maze full of traps, saying that the maze will be filled with a lot of traps and they have 30 minutes to complete it and reach out to the other side. Inside the maze, a girl named Lemon Irvine asks Mash if she can tag along with him, as it would be more efficient to work together, and Mash accepts it. During their journey, Lemon gets slowed down and asks for help for a variety of situations. Eventually, Mash decides to leave her as this wasn't efficient, and he has not much time left, but Lemon uses the Levio's Cuffus spell to handcuff Mash's arms and legs. She apologizes for deceiving him, and says she had a personal reason to keep him away from completing the test. When asked the reason behind it, she reveals that she couldn't tell him about the reason as it was a personal matter. Realizing that he's been deceived, Mash breaks free from the cuffs, saying that he has his own reasons to complete this exam and runs away alone. A Sphinx then appears next to Lemon and gives her a riddle. Lemon, terrified to see his size and magic abilities, is not able to answer in time, and the Sphinx decided to finish her with his spear. Before calling for help, Lemon realizes that he deserved this as she selfishly betrayed others. Suddenly, Mash returns and knocks out the Sphinx, stating the riddle like that does not exist. When asked why he saved her, Mash explains that he thought her personal reason may be like his and he felt bad about it. As the time is almost up, Claude feels happy about Mashle won't be able to complete this exam, but to his shock, Mashle proceeds by taking shortcuts, breaking the walls of the maze, and reaches the end destination in time with Lemon. Having passed through the walls, the other students felt that was cheating and Mashle had to find his way through the maze to truly pass. They start yelling at him to go home, and Mashle agrees to their points, but given his situation, he can't just go home. Lemon decides to speak, telling everyone that Mashle isn't at fault. Claude wants her to shut up or she will regret it, but Lemon continues and explains that Claude told her to prevent Mashle from reaching the point, and he would allow her to pass the exam. She also told them that Mashle saved her from the Sphinx, and even proposed to her, but Mashle denies it to the second one, and she keeps insisting he did. Hearing this, Claude confesses that he set up Mashle, but since it's his exam, he feels he can fail students who he doesn't like. He explains that Mashle and Lemon are commoners and the school is for the elite. Claude then activates his magic spell with his wand and decides to fail both Mashle and Lemon unless they decide to challenge his decision. Mashle then snaps Claude's wand to everyone's surprise. Suddenly, Headmaster Walbert shows up and silences everyone. He announces they are moving to the final interviews and from now on he is in charge of the exam. Walbert tells Claude that he wishes to speak with him later, which is not something Claude wanted to hear. Walbert proceeds with the interviews starting with Mashle. He teleports him into a big hall. He asks him why he chose their school and Mashle just says that he wants to live in peace with his family. The other teachers weren't happy with the answer and wanted more explanation, but Walbert finds it sufficient and proceeds. He heard that Mashle went back to save a girl in the maze, even though he was about to fail his exam and wonders why. Mashle tells him that otherwise he would have regretted it. Walbert starts laughing as he finds Mashle to be one that acts before he thinks, but tells him that there are many creatures stronger than him, and wonders if he would take the same actions if he found himself hopelessly outmatched. Walbert then showcases his magical power which makes the other teachers shiver and suffocates, and wonders what Mashle would do if he was facing him. Walbert then explains his powerful magic that allows him to transfer the soul of the person that he cherishes the most into the doll. At the same time Regro loses consciousness as his soul moves to the doll. Walbert continues to explain that if he drives the knife into the doll, the soul would never return. Mashle then tries to break the knife, but as he fails he tries to stop it from going down, believing that Walbert can't continue this magic for very long and all he needs is to outlast him. Walbert explains that power can be used to harm or protect, and the school's principle is to foster the talents of mages to protect the weak and regulate the strong, and that he sees that Mashle embodies those qualities. He apologizes, explaining he had no intention to cause any harm, but Mashle tells him there is no need to apologize. He goes on to explain that if he had to face him, he would knock him out with his fist. Hearing that, Walbert welcomes Mashle to the school. Mashle attends his first magic class to learn magic. The professor is demonstrating the lock-opening spell Optures. The professor explains that the user must imagine they are opening the lock as they infuse it with magic. The students repeat this with their locks. But as Mashle cannot use magic, he breaks it open with his hands. He tells this to the teacher, and she gets enraged as he explains that he is not good with magic. A student to the side, Finn, is cautious of Mashle. He also catches the eye of another student. As they go to their dormitories, Finn finds himself in his appointed room, wondering who his roommate would be, hoping that it would not be Mashle. Suddenly, Mashle rips the door open and greets Finn. They introduce themselves and Finn seems to think that he misunderstood Mashle, who then names all his muscles and Finn takes back what he thought. Mashle asks Finn about the Divine Visionary. Finn explains that a student needed gold coins which they got based on their evaluation in tests, coursework, extracurricular activities, and school life. He also tells him that after 3 terms anyone with 5 or more gold coins could get into the running as a candidate for a Divine Visionary, but if they can't keep up their grades each semester, they will be expelled regardless of how many coins they had, much to Mashle's shock. After that, they wish each other good luck and Mash vows to work with him together, stating that he is a good guy. He also offers him his cream puff, and they begin eat together. While eating a cream puff in his room, Mash asks Finn to lend his broom for tomorrow's class because he brought a brush instead of broom, thinking that they were cleaning and that a scrub would be better. Shocked at this, Finn wonders about Mash's personality, saying that how can Mash be so innocent, but decides to give his broom to Mash. The next day, Mash goes to the flying class where they learn how to fly a broom. The professor states that they need to infuse the broom with magic and command it with the word fly. As everyone says fly, Mash also tries this but fails. Thinking about his promise with the magic police officer, Mash states that he has to become the divine visionary in order to live a peaceful life with his father, but suddenly, he gets approached by a fellow student who starts discouraging Mash for not able to lift a simple broomstick with his magic. Hearing this, Mash tosses his foot into the ground and brings the broom in the air and grabs it, and says the word fly after that. His classmate then start bad-mouthing about him and calling him a cheater, and decides to approach him. But before he can do anything to Mash, the professor ordered the students to fly into the air with their broomsticks. Wondering that this might be the good opportunity to ruin Mash's reputation in front of the whole class, the boy decides to challenge Mash for a broom race, and the loser has to obey the winner for as long as they are in Magic Academy. Mash accepts his challenge and both get ready for the race. When the professor says the word ready and go, Mash already crossed the finish line. The professor starts yelling in shock but admires Mash's incredible speed, calling it a new world record in Magic Academy in broom race. However, Finn saw what happened in the race. He stated that when she said start, Mash chucked the broom into the air and then jumped out towards the broom and mounted on it in the midair. The boy does not want to accept his defeat, starts calling him cheater again, but Mash shuts him down, stating that he is dropping the bet and will not tell him to do anything. Thinking that Mash is mocking him, the boy decided to attack the Mash, but before he can do that, he was approached by Lloyd, who sewed his mouth with his magic threads, and apologizes to Mash to his friend's rude behavior. The other students, who were afraid of Lloyd, realized that Mash is the next target and decided to stay away from this. But to their surprise, Lloyd introduced himself and asked Mash to become his friend. Mash mistakes his name, calling him a spud cabbage. Angered at this, Lloyd starts to get their conversation into the next level, but the professor interrupts them and asks them to attend their broom class, and Lloyd asked him to meet him after the class. After that, Lloyd leaves with his friend and beats him up for losing to such a commoner. Mash then inquired about why everyone being afraid of Cavil, in which Finn explains that Cavil is the son of a high-ranking member in the Bureau of Magic, and if someone stood up against him, they would be expelled. The vice principal also favors him because of his ties with the Cavil's family. Finn also witnessed this incident happen to a lot of students since middle school, and everyone afraid of him because of that. After the class, they go back to the dorm and Mash makes cream puffs instead of meeting with Cavil, who feels furious after not waiting for so long. While eating his self-made cream puffs, Mash realizes he needs to get to the top and do it fast, so he can start living with his father again. The next day, Mash gets ready for his potion class but sees his textbook ruined. Cavil goes to Mash and asks why he didn't show up on the ground yesterday. Mash apologizes for that and says he was making cream puffs. Lloyd ignored his excuse and says that he has good connections with Vice Principal and can help him to become the next divine visionary. But in exchange, Mash has to do what he is told. Realizing that this is a perfect opportunity to fulfill his promise, Mash decides to agree with condition. He then started carrying their books, clean up their shoes, gets him a drink, massages his shoulders, and more. Mash finds another book torn up and asks Finn to share. Finn says no to his request, but Mash does not realize this. He then thanks him for the book and the broom, saying that he is relieved to have a good friend like him. After the class, Cavil purposely spills his drink and asks him to clean it, in which Mash happily complies and cleans it really well. Cavill then goes to Finn and orders him to burn Mash's robes as he feels bored of tearing his books. Finn, thinking that Mash was so good to him, decides to says no, stating that he can't do this anymore. Angered at this, Cavill beats him up. When Mash asks what happened to him, Cavill tells him that he was expecting an apology for him, but he didn't do it, and gets beaten up for that. Finn then cries and confesses to Mash that he was the one who burned his books and was told to do that by Cavill. He apologizes to Mash for his rude behavior despite Mash was always good to him, and even called him his friend. Angered at this, Mash grabs Cavill's hair and smashes him to the ground. To everyone's shock, Finn says he would get expelled for this, but Mash does not care, saying that he didn't do anything wrong. After seeing Cavill in an unconscious state, he changes his statement and admits that he really did a bad thing. The vice principal Farman, having seen everything, says that he did bad thing, revealing that it was a violent attack on an innocent student and both Mash and Finn will be held responsible for that in the school conference. The vice principal also talked about status difference between Cavill and Mash, revealing that different social status means different treatment, and since they are commoners, they will be severely punished. Having heard enough of his words, Mash attacks him with his knees in the face and surprises everyone with it. Mash explains that the vice principal was not open to reason, so that's why he hit him. Vice principal then calls him a serial killer, stating that he has the authority to expel ordinary students like him at any time. He then tries to attack Mash with his magic spell, but Mash smashes a mud in his face, which he gets after digging a hole in the hall area. He then picks him up and puts him inside the hole, and starts burying him into the ground. The vice principal then threatened to expel him from the Magic Academy, but Mash didn't listen to his words and continues to bury him, saying that he will bury the people who tried to hurt his family or friends. The next day Mash is called to the headmaster's office. He assumes that he's there because he baked cream puffs in the dorm kitchen without permission, but that is obviously not the case. The headmaster talks about the incident yesterday, and shews him a letter of expulsion that he was given. He then says the hierarchy of the world. Headmaster says that what Mash did is unforgivable. He then continues to burn the letter and state that a world where caring is at a disadvantage is bad. He explains why he took the position of headmaster, and hopes that Mash will become a divine visionary. He then repeats how to become a divine visionary, but Mash could not understand, so he puts it in simpler terms. Headmaster says he will handle the Bureau of Magic and encourages Mash. He then says in his mind that Mash has one more trial. The next day there was an inter-dorm match of the sport, Duello. Players fly in the air trying to put a ball through a goal. Mash was recruited because of his fantastic performance the other day. The winner gets a silver coin. The Duello match between Adler and Lang dorms begins. Mash stands rooted to the ground, staring up as the other players begin playing in earnest. The crowd begins to jeer at Mash and throw things at him and tell him to stop playing if his heart was not in it, and Mash thinks to himself how he wished he could do so. The story continues as Mash settles for standing still on the ground, looking dejected. His friend Tom arrives and reminds him of a promise to be number one, but Mash denies making such a commitment. Tom then observes that Mash lacks bamboo and begins to explain its importance as a material that can withstand any climate and situation. As Tom continues speaking, he suddenly realizes that he forgot to acquaint Mash with the game rules of Duello. The game involves players fighting over control of a ball mid-air and passing it through a ring to score points. The game is all about broom technique, and players are strictly forbidden from using magic. Tom discloses that he has placed everything on the game of Duello, and that's the reason he sought out Mash for his skills. As Tom soared high into the air, he was suddenly hit by another player, causing him to plummet to the ground with a loud crash. The player pretended it was an accident, but Tom could see through the facade and was appalled by the lack of sportsmanship. Despite the excruciating pain of a broken bone, Tom remained steadfast in his belief that winning wasn't everything. Meanwhile, the scoreboard showed that Lang Dorm had pulled ahead with a solid lead of 40 points over Adler Dorm. Tom's words of wisdom resonated with Mash, who was beginning to feel the pressure of the game. It wasn't about winning or losing, but about giving it your all and playing with integrity. Despite having a numerical advantage of 6 players versus 4, Lang Dorm continued to dominate the game, widening their lead to a whopping 50 points. As the game reaches a critical point, Mash's frustration grows to a boiling point. With the ball out of reach, he can't stand idly by any longer. Suddenly, Mash grabs his broom and takes off into the air, leaving everyone in shock as they watch him fly. However, it's not true flight, he's simply using his quick feet to keep himself afloat. As he grabs the ball, the crowd watches in anticipation, wondering how he'll make a shot from such a far distance. Mash winds up and releases the ball, sending it hurtling towards the goal with immense force. The ball lands squarely in the target, and the crowd erupts in cheers. Without missing a beat, Mash repeats the feat over and over again, scoring point after point, until Adler is so far ahead that victory is all but certain. The game ends with Adler victorious and Mash's impressive display of skill and determination earning him and his team a silver coin. After the game, Tom embraces Mash, overjoyed at his growth and newfound strength. On a bright day, Tom arrives to pick up Mash for their regular duello practice session. Lemon, another student, also tags along with the intention of studying with Mash. However, Mash seems uninterested in their company and seeks help from Finn, who pretends to be asleep. Suddenly, Lance Crown, a student who previously ranked first in the entrance exam, appears out of nowhere and comments on how much fun Mash seems to be having. Lemon recognizes him and introduces him to the others. Lance then pulls out an ancient bottle, claiming it to be a special magical tool. When he opens the bottle, Tom, Lemon, and Finn are unexpectedly sucked into it and trapped inside. Lance tells Mash that if he wants his friends back, he should meet him in the forest near the owl hut, and then teleports away. Mash's encounter with Lance in the forest is an unexpected turn of events. As they converse, Lance unveils that he possesses 2 silver coins, which is surprising to Tom, who thought only a select few upperclassmen were entitled to them. The fact that Lance has 2 lines on his face makes Tom wary, as double-line magic users are a rare breed, only found in 1 in 100,000 individuals, and are considered to be chosen by magic itself. Lance challenges Mash to a bet, with each person betting their silver coin. Despite having Mash's friends on his side, Lance knows that he doesn't need a handicap, as he believes Mash was too soft during the entrance exam and put someone else's goals above his own. Mash agrees to the bet, and Lance uses his Graviole magic to clear the area. However, the noise from his magic attracts the attention of Regro and Brad, who were nearby. Mash was furious with Lance's behavior and couldn't control his emotions. He attempted to punch him without using magic. However, Lance was quick to respond and used Graviole once again to pin Mash down. Lance was amazed that Mash was seriously trying to beat him without using magic, but Mash was determined to fight on regardless. Mash tried to stand up, but the gravity magic was too strong, and he couldn't move. But Mash wasn't one to give up easily. He declared that he could do enough without standing, and punched the ground. Suddenly, long roots emerged from the ground, stopping Lance's magic and surprising him. Mash then attempted to punch Lance again, who, once again, used Graviole to dodge the attack. But Mash was faster now, and he could withstand Lance's magic. Mash tried to punch Lance once more, but as Lance dodged, he knocked off his pendant. Mash picked it up and looked at the picture of a young girl on it, and he assumed that Lance was a Lilicon. Lance quickly denied it, and explained that he had a sister complex. He asked Mash for his pendant back, and Mash returned it, though he still found it unsettling. Lance and Mash are having a conversation, and Lance asks Mash what he believes is the most crucial thing in the world. Mash takes a moment to ponder and eventually replies cream puffs. Lance promptly interrupts him, informing him that he is incorrect. Mash makes several other guesses, including human life, love, and freedom, but Lance insists that all of these answers are incorrect as well. Lance becomes increasingly frustrated as Mash is unable to come up with the answer he's looking for. Eventually, Mash turns the question back on Lance, and Lance confidently declares that his little sister is the most important thing in the world to him. Mash points out that everyone has different priorities and values, and what is important to one person may not be important to another. Lance stands at the edge of the cliff, clutching the ancient bottle tightly in his hand. He takes a deep breath and prepares to drop it, his eyes fixed on Mash, who is determined to save his friends trapped inside. Lance is aware of Mash's intentions and smirks, ready to unleash his demonic side if necessary. He remembers the conversation he had with his sister, Anna, who scolded him for getting into a fight. She had a way of seeing through his lies, and she knew he was up to no good. Despite his flaws, she loved him for his kindness and clumsiness. Lance's thoughts then turn to a darker place as he remembers the day when Anna was diagnosed with an incurable disease that would strip her of her magical powers. If that happened, their parents would be forced to turn her over to the government. Lance was furious at his parents for even considering such a thing, and vowed to become a divine visionary to change the corrupt system and save his beloved sister. Lance drops the bottle and uses graviole. He then wonders what Mash will do, but sees that he had taken some of his clothes off. To his surprise, Mash cast a spell he had never heard of before, hamstring magic, and then followed up with Big Bang Dash. In mere seconds, Mash returned with the bottle, and Lance couldn't believe his eyes. He was left wondering whether Mash was using some kind of physical enhancement magic. After realizing that the bottle was fake and empty, Mash suggested that they stop fighting since Lance didn't seem like a bad guy. However, he quickly discovered the real bottle when he searched Lance. Lance was taken aback by Mash's decision to stop, as he had hoped to win silver coins from him. Mash explained that he often made irrational decisions due to his clumsiness. Lance couldn't help but remember his sister's advice and agreed to stop the fight. He gave Mash a silver coin, and the latter released Tom, Lemon, and Finn. However, as soon as he was back at the academy, he regretted not doing it earlier since the trio continued to annoy him. At the opening scene, the narrator reveals the brief explanation of the 3 dorms of Easton Magic Academy, where students with corresponding characteristics are assigned to. The Adler dorm represents courage and conviction, Orca has wisdom and willingness, and Lang represents ability and ambitions. These dorms are rivals with one another, and their friendly rivalry carries across the entire academy. Mash was feeling quite pleased with himself, as he held 2 silver coins in his hand. However, his celebration was short-lived, as he realized that he still had 3 more coins to collect in order to complete his set. Unfortunately, Mash's math skills left much to be desired, and he somehow convinced himself that he still had 28 coins left to collect. Finn, his friend and companion, quickly corrected him on his mistake, which left Mash feeling embarrassed and foolish for his miscalculation. He couldn't help but wonder if he had cream puffs for brains. To make matters worse, Finn reminded Mash of their unfinished potion homework, which was due soon. If they didn't complete it, they would fail the class and be expelled from school. As they were discussing their dire situation, Lance, their nemesis and classmate, barged into their room and began berating them for being lazy and irresponsible. Mash was fed up with Lance's bullying and decided to fight back. Using Lance's locket pendant against him, Mash managed to make him crash into the wall, much to the surprise of everyone in the room. After the previous encounter, Mash and Finn head to the school kitchen, where Lance presents them with the crucial ingredient for their potion assignment, a rare mandragora. Lance performs the sleep-inducing spell, Quientus, on the mandragora, rendering it motionless. However, when Finn attempts to cast the same spell on his mandragora, he fails miserably. Mash takes his turn next, but instead of falling asleep, the Mandragora becomes even more restless and noisy. Lance provides Finn with some helpful tips, and after several attempts, Finn successfully puts his Mandragora to sleep. Meanwhile, Mash's Mandragora continues to grow and thrash about, causing chaos in the kitchen. In a desperate attempt to subdue the oversized Mandragora, Mash smacks it with his hand, knocking it out cold. As Lance continues to teach Mash and Finn how to granulate Mandragora, Finn is still struggling with the process despite Lance insisting it's simple. Mash, on the other hand, has managed to turn his Mandragora into a cream puff instead of granulating it. Lance then tries to guide Mash step by step on how to granulate the Mandragora, but Mash still ends up with a cream puff. Feeling defeated, Lance comments that Mash is only good at fighting, which Mash immediately agrees with, causing Lance to question why he's so proud of it. Determined not to lose to Mash next time, Lance reveals his plans to join the Bureau of Magic for personal reasons and warns anyone who tries to steal his coins will face severe consequences. Mash agrees that he doesn't need to be reminded of that, and the three continue working on their assignment. In the midst of all the brewing chaos, a secret meeting takes place at Lang Dorm, where the members plot to steal the precious coins from the Adler house. Meanwhile, Mash and Lance find themselves standing outside a dense forest, with Mash curiously asking if they're planning to camp there. Lance denies it, clearly indicating their sole intention of completing the mission assigned to them. Suddenly, the pair is interrupted by a loud and flamboyant man named Dot Barrett, who declares himself the protagonist of the story. Dot belittles Mash as a mere side character, but before things escalate any further, Finn and Lemon arrive on the scene. Lemon seems to have a soft spot for Mash, and their interaction is marked by blushing and bashfulness. Dot, unable to bear the sight of someone else receiving attention, spits on Mash's face and begins a rant about how he will eliminate all the hot men in the world by joining the Bureau of Magic. However, Mash and his group seem unfazed by Dot's outburst, dismissing him as someone with a bruised ego. The classroom atmosphere was tense as the teacher gave the order for both Dot and Mash to quiet down. As the commotion subsided, the objective of the class was explained: hunt down a forest scorpion and bring back its corpse for a chance to win a coveted bronze or silver coin. With the instructions laid out, Dot was the first to jump into action, taunting Mash and proclaiming that he wouldn't lose to him. Lance followed Dot, expressing his desire to win a silver coin, and Mash nodded in agreement. However, Mash's focus was quickly diverted when a fellow student accused him of being arrogant and acting as if he was better than everyone else. The situation quickly escalated when the student attacked Mash with an iron rod that suddenly appeared from the ground. The teacher immediately reprimanded the student for his actions and warned him of the consequences. Meanwhile, Mash struggled to comprehend why the student would behave in such a manner towards him. As he sought reassurance from the student, all he received was a cold, hostile glare, fueling his determination to succeed. Undeterred by the altercation, the student marched into the forest, intent on breaking Mash and emerging victorious. Lance then approaches Mash and warns him about the student and the citations that he culminated for his actions against students and teachers. Mash, however, was forlorn by the magical attack used on him crushed his cream puff. As Lance and Mash head into the forest, Lance claims they should work as a team to pass the test, but realizes that Mash abandoned him. Elsewhere, Mash realizes that he must have zoned out and got lost. Moments later, Dot appears and Mash smacks him and then comments that he wasted calories he'll never get back because of it. The two then hear a young woman scream and go to check what's wrong. Apparently a female student is in distress by a male student, and so Dot casts Explom on the male student. Trying to keep his cool in front of the young lady, Dot fails after she touches his hand and thanks him. Meanwhile, the recalcitrant student kills a large scorpion and notes if it's already time. Sitting on a log, the female student purposely touches knees with Dot, who tries to stay calm, but epically fails. The female student then calls Dot a freak, but lies when Dot asks her what she said. She then compliments Dot again and again he loses it. It's revealed that the female student's magic allows her to make any man fall in love with her. However, it fails to work on Mash. This disconcerts the woman as Mash's apathetic answers astounds her. So taking advantage of the one that she has under her allurement spell, she states that a certain student is after her named Silva. In light of this, Dot proclaims that he'll protect her from him. The man in question then appears and Dot proclaims that Dot better prepare to die, while Silva notes how cringeworthy Dot is. Silva then disparages Dot, claiming he'll give him a good dose of reality. On the other hand, Dot then casts Explom at Silva, who deftly dodges, and so Dot casts a spell called Machine Gun Explom, a superior form of Explom. After the sequential explosion from the last spell, Dot flips off the explosion where Silva was at, proclaiming, "Die twice!" Meanwhile, somewhere else in the forest, terrified Finn and Lemon huddle by Lance's legs in complete fear. Annoyed by Finn and Lemon's presence, Lance wonders if Mash is alright as Silva had his eye on him. As the smoke clears out and Dot touts his premature victory, he sees that Silva protected himself with his iron magic. Silva then strikes Dot with his iron magic, and in the process, a small rock knocks the cream puff Mash was eating out of his hand and onto the ground. Feeling exuberant from his display, Silva taunts and disparages while Mash is perhaps unnerved by how his cream puff was just wasted. In Dot's inner monologue, he's in complete disbelief about the disparity in power with Silva and figures Mash would be of no adequate help. As Dot tries to think about a new plan to save the girl, Silva taunts her and calls him a letdown. However, he then offers the boys a deal, which is that if they endure 5 hits from his magic, he'll not only let the girl go but also throw in a silver coin of his. Dot accepts the deal without hesitation, claiming he'll be able to handle Silva's magic with ease. The girl tries to warn Dot, but he brushes it off. Silva then states that not only Dot has to endure the 5 attacks, but Mash also has to take 5 hits. Dot tries to negotiate with Silva to leave Mash out of it, but Silva denies his request, stating that he is the one to decide. Curious to save both Mash and the girl, Dot proclaims that he'll take Mash's hits too. Impressed by Dot's sheer will, Silva inquires if he really can withstand 10 hits. Mash tries to dissuade Dot, but he's adamant he'll pull through. Silva then hits him with his iron magic, causing Dot to vomit blood from his mouth. Impressed at this, Silva hits him with 8 more iron magic shots, causing him to bleed heavily, but Dot was able to endure it. Seeing this, Dot realizes that he is an idiot who always falls for women and their tears and never thinks about himself. Having had enough of this, Silva creates his extra big iron fist attack and hits Dot with it, who falls to the ground because of it. Realizing that Dot will be finished with this attack, Silva begins to mock him for his personality, but to his shock, Dot gets up and stands in front of him. He walks towards Silva and asks him to keep his promise before falling unconsciously to the ground. Silva then proclaims that he lied to him, and that Dot is a fool for believing his words. Hearing this, Dot requests Mash take the girl and run away, while he holds Silva off with every bit of his strength. Suddenly, Dot is struck by another attack from Silva, but he continues to beg Mash to protect the girl. However, it is then revealed that the girl was Silva's teammate, and used a charm spell on Dot to bring him under her control. She also revealed that she hates guys like him who are cheesy and stuffy to girls, and Silva disparages Dot as the sorriest excuse for a man he's ever encountered. Suddenly, Mash flings a cream puff into Silva's mouth and silences him. He then openly declares that he'll take his 10-hit challenge and taunts him to bring his best. Somewhere in the forest, Lance, Finn, and Lemon discuss Mash's well-being. Lance tells them about the differences between white mages and red mages, with white mages having scholarship and sports magic and red mages having combat magic. He also tells them about the tougher red mages who are in their 2nd year, as well as the double-lined ones, who are far stronger than Mash. Meanwhile, Mash faces off against the livid Silva, who notes his disgust and disdain for Mash and especially Dot. After Silva discloses his disturbing pleasure of breaking people he loathes to Mash, who cares not for any of it, Silva spots a section of his robe that was singed a bit by Dot's attack. Before Silva could take out his frustration on Dot and hit him with one of his iron fist attacks, Mash intervened and tried to punch him, but Silva counterattacked with his magic. Silva then makes fun of Mash, saying that he is far stronger than Mash and was able to collect 2 gold coins in his first year. He then charges at Mash with his iron fist attack and hits him with 2 of them, but to his shock, Mash catches the 3rd one. He then readies for his own attack, calling it the Triceps Magic Ballista Knuckle, and charges at Silva. Amused at Mash's silly magic, Silva casts another spell and hits Mash with it. However, Mash dodges his every attack and easily breaks through his iron magic, landing a powerful punch on his face. The girl watches the whole scene in disbelief and wonders how a nobody like Mash can hit a double-mark magician like Silva. Losing his cool, Silva states that he earned 2 gold coins in his first year and is the most powerful magician among second-year students, and again charges at Mash with his iron magic. However, this time Mash also launches a massive counterattack against Silva, easily breaking through the iron fist spell and landing a powerful blow on Silva's abdomen. Frustrated and unable to move, Silva falls to the ground and laments how strong Mash is and how he does not have much energy left to fight him. Mash then sits on a large nearby tree root and claims that he has only used 2 hits on Silva so far and has 8 remaining, much to Silva's horror. After a few moments, Mash rises from the tree root and approaches Silva, asking him if he's ready for the 3rd hit. Horrified at Mash's power, Silva acknowledges the dangerous situation he's in, and if he's hit with another attack, he will die. He begins to think of a plan to escape from this situation, and to his stroke of luck, a giant forest Scorpio with a star on its forehead appears. Delighted by this encounter, Silva notes that the scorpion will take care of Mash while he makes his escape. However, Mash punches the scorpion into the air and out of sight, causing the star to fall to the ground. Figuring his demise is near even though he earned 2 gold coins in his first year, Silva gets ready to receive the final blow, but to his shock, Mash stops the fight, stating that he feels bad for Silva, who, upon hearing this, falls into a slump. The girl, astounded by Mash easily beating Silva, tries to act innocent in front of the muscle boy. However, Mash approaches the girl and German suplexes her into the ground, causing her to fall unconscious, even stating that he treats both guys and girls equally. Dot, who witnesses this all, is stupefied by it, and thinks that Mash has plenty of screws loose. Outside of the forest, Mash and Dot regroup with Finn, Lemon, and Lance. They learn from Mash how he managed to defeat Silva and a 1-star scorpion. A forlorn Dot walks away from the group, thinking about the harsh words the girl said to him. However, to his surprise, he is then approached by Lemon, who asks if he's okay. This irks Dot, as a love arrow plunges into his head. He then apologizes to Mash for involving him in the fight, and thanks him too. Mash, however, points out that Dot is out of character, and the old, loud, and audacious Dot returns to his persona. Lance then informs Mash that he was targeted by the Lang House, who are hunting the Adler House coins. He tells them about the backstory of the Lang House, who prefer nobles in their group, their desires to stop nobodies like them from entering the Bureau of Magic, and their goal to start a great war of the coins. Although Finn, Lemon, and Dot are notably disconcerted by this news, the ever-intrepid and aloof Mash claims he used to make stuff like that since he was 12. Suddenly, Mash's pocket begins to glow, and he realizes that he has 2 silver coins from the duello match and lance fight, 1 silver coin from Silva, and 2 silver coins from Star Scorpion formed into a gold coin. As Mash gains a gold coin, he shows it to Dot, whose shining light blinds him away. Mash then brings up the fact that he didn't know that there were separate dorms. Lance confirms there are, and Finn revealed they were sorted after entering the school. A flashback showing how the students were sorted into their respective dorms by the sorting unicorn. The first one to go through the sorting process is a male student named Egalt Van Sam. Egalt touches the sorting unicorn's horn and is sent to the Orca house. Up next is Alban Smith, who is sorted into the Adler house, and the next sequential student is sent to Lang. The next one is Mash. While the sorting unicorn touts his confidence in his sorting capabilities, he's left flabbergasted by what he sees in Mash's mind, which is only cream puffs. Mash apologizes for squeezing too hard on the sorting unicorn's horn, but the unicorn is stunned and wonders what to do since Mash's mind has only cream puffs. Therefore, for his ardent and superfluous love for cream puffs, the sorting unicorn horns send Mash to the Adler dorm. Back to the present, Mash remembers that all of that happened, which Lance, Finn, and Dot all recall too. Lance then continues his explanation of the Lang house's magia lupis and deduces that Silva was a lackey of theirs. Not only that, they plan on stealing the coins from the other houses in an attempt to call the favor to their disposition, and this is why Mash has become their target. Lance tells Mash to stay away as far as he can from them, to which Mash bluntly agrees. The following day, Mash gets lost on his way to class and ends up in front of the Lang house dorm. Mash is confused about whether to push or pull the door open. Inside the dorm, Silva asks the Magia leader to give him another chance, but the leader refuses and transforms him into a doll with his magic. The now transformed doll of Silva joins the parade of other dolls that were transformed. Cradling a doll, whom he addresses as his mother, the leader claims only he should become the divine visionary, not some commoner. Suddenly, Mash interrupts by breaking into the dorm room. Mash candidly states that the leader is talking to a doll and that he may have broken their door. The leader then thanks him for addressing that problem with him. And this brings the part 6 to an end.